Praise and worship songs are There's Room for All, number 76, and Perpetual Praise, number 1, both from the sing book. You can find those under your seats. Also, take this opportunity to go get yourself some rhythm instruments so you can play along. They're in the back corner of the church. There's also finger labyrinths if you want to do something like that. Go and get them anytime during the service. Please rise as you are able, in body or in heart, and let us sing together. Ready? There is room for all in the shadow of God's wing. There is room for all sheltered in God's love. And I rejoice and sing, my refuge and my rock in whom I trust. There is room for all. There is room for all. There is room for all in the shadow of God's wing. God's wings. There is room for all. Your many blessings are new each morning, and with each dawning we sing your praise. From early morning to restful evening, our grateful hearts sing praises. Your love and mercy shining bright, bring home and joy as we follow in your light. Breathe within us, you sing within us, you move our hearts to perpetual praise. Through all of our days, perpetual praise. Your many blessings are new each morning, and with each dawning we sing your praise. To restful evening, our grateful hearts sing praises. Your love and mercy shining bright, bring home and joy as we follow in your light. You breathe within us, you sing within us, you move our hearts to perpetual praise. Through all of our days, perpetual praise. You may be seated. Good morning and welcome, everybody. Those of you who are watching online, we're glad that you're here. Those of you who are in the building, we're super glad that you're here too. Let's see. You can find today's bulletin for the service either on our app or on our website at PlymouthUnited.org if you want to follow along with that. We're going to have new member classes starting August 7th and another one on August 14th. We hope that you will come to both. If you can't come to both, that's okay. I can catch you up at coffee sometime. But we do hope that if you're interested in becoming a member, whether you want to be a member because you've been joining us online or you've been joining us here on site, we're going to have a hybrid kind of a membership. Get in touch with me if you're interested. And now I invite you to join me in a time of centering. Today we're going to be talking about what it means to live in faith as opposed to living in certainty. So I want you to consider all the ways that you have felt certain of something in your body this week. And we're surprised that it wasn't as much of a certainty as you thought it was. Where has your body shifted this week? Maybe surprising you with its strength. Maybe you said to yourself, well, I could never bend my knees like that. I could never reach so high. I could never. And you found yourself that you did. Maybe it's been the opposite. You said to yourself, oh, I'm quite certain that I can run that fast. I'm quite certain that I can lift this thing. And you were like, oh, I can't do that. I want you to breathe into your body goodness and love. Our bodies are ever changing and surprising us. May we let go of those expectations and just keep experimenting with how we move through this life physically and allow ourselves to be fully human, fully embodied. How have you experienced that kind of surprise intellectually? Where have you said to yourself, well, I know what I think about that. And in your thinking, you got some new information on one side or the other, and you was like, oh, I'm going to have to learn to think differently. Breathe into that. Allow yourself to have that kind of intellectual nuance, nimbleness, and love the fact that you get to have new information so that you can change your mind. You can change the shape of your expectation. Has this happened emotionally for you also? I know how I feel about that. Oh, when such and such happens, I know what to expect from my emotional center. And yet you walked away surprised. Good surprised or bummer surprised. Either way, what new information came to you? Allowing your emotional landscape to shift. How have your emotions been guided in new ways? These are gifts, these opportunities for shifts and changes. Sometimes they don't feel like gifts, but But that's what life is all about, is not getting stagnant, but having new experiences. The same is true in our spirit. And I think our spirit ties all these things together. Sometimes it's a theological shift where we think that we understood God in a certain way and then we're surprised. But sometimes it's the Spirit that runs through all of these other shifts, giving us a kind of foundation to say, I can manage this change. I can be this new way and experience life in this new way. The solid ground of love hasn't shifted underneath me. It's just these other things that have shifted. Know that you are solid, no matter what ways the certainties have changed for you. And know that you are accompanied by a people who care about you deeply and by a God who is the essence of love. And as we co-create this space together, may we feel that solidness underneath the essence of ourselves as we bring ourselves fully to this time and to this place.
Please join me in our responsive call to worship. With our eyes and our spirits, with our hearts, we reach out in joy or sorrow. Let's sing together now, Colorful Creator, verses 1, 2, and 4. It's number 30 from the New Century Hymnal, which you'll find under your seats. Please stand as you are able in body or in heart.
You may be seated. Okay, so I've got two biblical witnesses. I couldn't help it. But the first one's really, really short. So it's from Genesis. It's chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. And it says this: Thus the heavens and the earth were finished in all their multitude. And on the seventh day, God finished the work that God had done and rested on the seventh day from all the work that was done. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, made it holy. Because on it, God rested from all the work that had been done in creation. And I wanted to follow this up with a passage from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 14, 1 through 6, which also talks about the Sabbath. On one occasion, when Jesus was going to the house of a leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, they were watching him closely. Just then, in front of them no less, there was a man who had dropsy, and Jesus asked the lawyers and Pharisees, "Is it lawful to cure people on the Sabbath or not?" That's what they did. They were just silent. So Jesus took him and healed him and sent him away. And then he said to them, if one of you has a child or an ox that's fallen into a well, will you not immediately pull it out on the Sabbath day? They could not reply to this.
Our contemporary witness is entitled Called to Question by Sister Joan Chittister, an excerpt from pages 1 and 9. If there is one thing that we have all been taught to fear, it is surely questions. There are some things we learn early that are never to be challenged. They simply are. They are absolute. They come out of a fountain of eternal truth, and they are true because someone else said they are true. So we live with someone else's answers for a long time, until the answers run dry. I know that because I myself have been caught up in the desert of doubt and found the answers to be worse than the questions could ever be. This book is not objective. It is a personal excursion through questions that for years I feared to ask because they had all been answered. Now I am convinced that not to answer them for ourselves means that we will fail in the only thing that, in the end, the spiritual life is surely all about: the search for meaning and for life. We suckle ourselves on clear or comfortable answers because we fear to ask the questions that make the real difference to the quality and content of our souls. The spiritual life begins when we discover that we can only become spiritual adults when we go beyond the answers, beyond the fear of uncertainty, to that great encompassing mystery of life that is God.
So I started us off with the readings about the Sabbath because of the controversy between Jesus and the Pharisees. The Sabbath is meant to be a day of rest because according to our creation myth, God rested on the seventh day after his 6 days of work, creating everything. In this telling, God is modeling the importance of rest, the importance of self-care. Jesus said in one of his teachings that the Sabbath was made for humans and not humans for the purpose of the Sabbath. When Jesus asked the Pharisees, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath, and then follows up with how no one would question taking care of a family emergency on the Sabbath, he is essentially asking them, what's work? How do you define work? What qualifies as work, and when is the notion of resting worthy of being interrupted? What is the context of resting, and when is activity not work, but a necessary part of life? These aren't the specific questions I'm going to answer for you this morning. What I want to talk about is the question that's inside those questions. How do we address and interpret spiritual rules and expectations? Teachings such as 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18, which says, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of Christ Jesus for you. I can't tell you how many times people have come to me with this exact verse saying, how can I do this? And am I sinning if I don't? Taken at face value, without any context, this is a teaching that we will fail over and over and over again. Anyone who rejoices always and gives thanks in all circumstances is probably avoiding the hard things of life and living in denial. As for praying without ceasing, if we literally did this according to most of the definitions we have of prayer, we wouldn't be able to have conversations with each other because we'd be too busy praying. It's not meant to be literal. Whenever we encounter these kinds of rules and teachings or expectations, we have to think about what the point was, what the context of the teaching or story was, and what's happening in our lives or the world around us currently. It can be very convenient to have a rule or a teaching that's literal and timeless. It gives our life parameters. We know when we've accomplished the goal, when we've failed, how we need to adjust to do better in the future. When we interpret teachings like this, though, in In a way, it lets us off the hook. We don't actually have to live. We don't actually have to make decisions. We become shells of ourselves, puppets. Given how much things change over time, how can any teaching be truly timeless, especially a teaching around what actions we're to take in life? From the big picture to the smallest details, we humans argue about interpretations of rules based on our filters of why they were instituted and how they were enacted. Duplicating ancient expectations for ourselves today leads more to controversy, is what I was going to say, controversy. I watch too many British shows. Anyway, it leads more to controversy like the one that Jesus had with the Pharisees than in building community and relationships. We also kind of lose our quest for enlightenment to just simple rule keeping for the sake of the rules themselves. Sister Joan Chittister writes, spiritual life begins when we discover that we can only become spiritual adults when we go beyond the answers, beyond the fear of uncertainty, to that great encompassing mystery of life that is God. She talks about the fear of questions, the importance of overcoming that fear for our soul's sake, so that our souls themselves don't run as dry as the answers that we're clinging to. So this is my conclusion. I'm not done. But my conclusion to all this is that spiritual absolutism is a kind of idolatry. Christianity is meant to be a religion of faith. But when we see the Bible or any ancient teaching as an absolute and as absolutely defining, we aren't living in faith. We're accepting something as a certainty. If we use the Bible to define itself, which can be problematic when taken to extremes, but holding this idea lightly, the writer of the New Testament letter called Hebrews says, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. This guiding principle helps to lead us away from certainty and literalism as a spiritual quest and inspires us to move forward in life with hope and conviction for a better future, even in the midst of the troubles and the woes of the present. I remember one time I think I was 21. Maybe I was 22. And I was thinking about making a big change. And there was this minister that I was going to Bible studies with. And I had said, I'm going to move to such and such a place. And it was many hours away. And the next time that we had Bible study twice a week with this minister in somebody's home. And he said, I've been praying about what you said, and God doesn't want you to move. I said, well, that's a problem. God should have told me that sooner, because I have to move out of my apartment in 2 days, and I've already signed the lease at the next place in the other city, so I'm pretty much moving. I mean, that's going to be inevitable. And he said, well, God doesn't want you to move. There's someplace else, there's something else for you. God doesn't want you to move. He was certain. This wasn't faith, this was certainty. So then he made sure to get in touch with me the next day. He said, I prayed about it some more. And I realized that God is still telling me that you are not supposed to move. But if you do, God will go with you. God will never leave you. You will always be in the presence of God. Now that was faith. And that changed my shaping of how I make decisions. Because instead of it being, is this the absolute most right thing that God would ever want me to do in my whole life moment? Should I get the Buick or should I get the Dodge? What does God want from me? God will be with me no matter what decision I make. And I went and leapt to a new conclusion. God trusts me to make decisions. God has given me the gifts and the skill sets that I need to live this life and will always, always be with me. That, to me, is more faith than am I certain that God wants me to buy the Buick or the Dodge, which actually those kinds of things happened to me in my young life. So, we're not to be immovable in our understanding of life. We're to shift with it. We can also put it in a kind of a post-pandemic concept. Pivot. The word pivot has become very popular during the pandemic. Well, we got to pivot now. Pivot is a word that got embraced out of necessity. It felt like we were always being asked to be slightly off balance all the time in order to be agile and nimble. This ability to pivot that means that you're grounded just enough to push off in another direction at a moment's notice. Both feet aren't on the ground at the same time. I'm not a boxer, but I've watched TV shows where they're training boxers, and they're always talking about being on both feet, going between them so that you can go in any direction you need to go in. That's what the pandemic felt like in terms of making sense out of life. We always had to figure out where we were going to go next, so we couldn't be I am set in place. You have to constantly be shifting a little bit. That's what faith is also, I think, the ability to pivot. When we rely on absolutism, our faith erodes. We become reliant on the certainty itself, as if the certainty was a God. Going beyond the answers, as Sister Joan Chittister suggests, moves us to ask questions inside those questions. The why, the context, the spiritual leading for the teaching, and how that leading is similar or different from our own situation. That's the quest for a deeper understanding for this life and our relationship with holy love. Idolatry is the mindset or action which elevates the answers themselves above holy love. It replaces the divine with a human-created ideal meant to prop up the notion of safety and self-righteousness. Well, I wish there was a way to create the certainty of safety and of human enlightenment. The truth is, there's too many variables. What I do believe is that holy love is the essence of the pivot. Creation itself is an act of pivoting and shifting. Creating requires a certain amount of leaning into ambiguity, of trusting that however things shift, the act of creating is worth it. No matter how it turns out, the process itself is a good one to give ourselves. There's a famous sculptor whose name is eluding me right now, who said, I don't see a block of rock that I'm going to create, a statue of. I see the statue that I have to release from the rock. We are creators. We are sculptors of this life. Each day we create the day that we're in. Sometimes we do it in a solitary way. Other times we do it with each other. Our acts of creation mimic the great Creator by virtue of us holding within us the Creator essence as the image of God. When we let go of absoluteness, we also let go of the weights that drag us down. We release God to be God in all God's godness. We remove the limits that we place on God to move and continue to create. We participate as co-creators of this life, learning from the past but not getting stuck in it, releasing ourselves from knowing the answers and looking for absolutes frees us. When we learn from the point of the law like Jesus did, then we know its meaning, not just how to use it, how to apply it, but the reason for it. And we can explore widely what Sister Joan says is what the spiritual life is surely all about, the search for meaning and for life. And with that, friends, peace.
Glimpses of truth thou hast Place in my hands the wonderful key that shall unclasp and set me free. Silently now I wait for thee, ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Open my ears that I may hear, voices of truth thus endless clear, and while the scriptures fall on my ear, everything false will disappear. Silently now I wait for thee, ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Open my mouth and let me bear. Open my mouth and let me bear. Let me know truth everywhere. Let me know truth everywhere. Open my heart and let me prepare. Open my heart, prepare love with my children, lost to share. Silently now I wait for thee, ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Silently I wait for thee, Spirit divine.
Please join your heart and mind in prayer. Holy love, you are beyond what we can imagine or think. In the essence of who you are is mystery. Help us to not box you in. Help us to not become shells of ourselves, limiting who we are even as people. You've created us with the immense capacity to think and to feel, to experience with our five senses and beyond. Help us to seek the depths of who you are through our experience of you and through our experience of each other and of this life that we share and of the world that's around us, that's created. And as we bloom, opening up our petals one by one to see more fully, to listen more deeply, to drink in order to satiate. Help us then to have the kind of outlook where we can allow others to experience themselves fully right in front of us. That we can companion with ourselves is wonderful, but that we can companion with others who are also seeking and wanting to be more fully themselves and wanting to shift and pivot and know the questions inside the questions rather than always searching for the answers is a kind of intimacy that not a lot of people get to experience. Help us be those people and help it then to ripple out wider and wider so that this becomes not a singular kind of event, but something that more and more people engage in, and that the purpose of this life is to know each other better rather than to make rules that we have to follow so that there's a good power structure in place, even if it is for the sake of some kind of elusive safety, because circumstance always interrupts those kinds of things. Help us to be confident so that we can share confidently, so that we can be open confidently, so that you can enter into moments where love is needed the most, and we can be in those vulnerable times and in those joyous times of celebration. And we thank you that there is so much more that we can imagine or think about. We thank you that your mystery exceeds our ability to understand. We thank you that we get to constantly be shown something new and something wonderful, and that we get to be bonded together in that. And because we want to practice this not only on our own, but also in the community, this faith community, we lift up our voices saying these words in prayer. We are holy and beloved by God. Because of this, we clothe ourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. We bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, we forgive each other, just as forgiveness and grace have been given us. Above all, we clothe ourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. We let holy peace rule in our hearts, to which we are called in this one community of Christ's body. As thankful people, we share our lives with one another, sing praises, and pray. May the hopes in our hearts and the work we do in ministry add to the love in the world. Blessed be.
Each week we collect two offerings. One is for the church, which goes into our general fund for the running of the church and our ministries. The second is the loose offering, which is sent to a designated charity, which changes each week. If you've brought your offering in person today, you're welcome to drop it in the offering box in the back. It's the glass church near the doors by the narthex. Our loose offering today will go to the Plymouth Village UCC in Beaumont for their turkey fund. Plymouth Village was founded by the Houston Association and Plymouth Church UCC in Beaumont for low-income families. The members and congregations of the Houston Association have worked to provide care, food, healing, and housing to those in need. The offering received today will be designated to their turkey fund to provide their occupants turkeys for Thanksgiving. If you would like to give to our general fund, to the loose offering, or to both, you can use bill pay from your bank, send us a check, use the Plymouth app, or use PushPay according to the directions on your screen. As always, thank you for supporting Plymouth and the ministries of the loose offering. Please join me in our responsive offertory prayer based on the letter of James. Every generous act of giving comes from love. There is a religion that is pure and undefiled before God. Jesus taught, healed, and fed the crowds. Together, we seek to do the same. And now let's sing together, "We Cannot Own the Sunlit Sky," number 563 from the New Century Hymnal, which you can find under your seats. Please stand in body or in heart.
Go from this moment to whatever it is that you have next. May you find yourself comfortable in the middle of ambiguity, knowing that holy love is right there beside you, guiding you through the mystery of this life and of this world. May you find yourself confident in situations that you've always felt nervous in before, because you know that the mystery of life is the most solid thing that we have, that we can count on. And that mystery resides as God's creative essence in each one of us. And may you see that image of God in every person that you meet, including the one that you meet in the mirror. And may you go forth in peace and as peacemakers.